Whether you're dealing with symptoms like itching, headaches, digestive issues like bloating, estrogen dominance, you've been wondering if histamine could be the culprit, let's unpack what histamine intolerance is, why it happens, and how it relates to your food and, of course, overall health. My name is Dr. Ariane Missimer. I'm a functional medicine practitioner, doctor of physical therapy, registered dietitian, and owner of the Movement Paradigm Integrative Health Center. And I see so many patients with histamine intolerance. So let's start with what is histamine. So to understand histamine intolerance, we have to know what histamine is. So ultimately, it's a natural chemical compound that plays several important roles in our bodies. It's released by the immune system to help combat invaders like allergens, for example, and it's also involved in digestion, in our sleep-wake cycle, and brain function as well. In other words, histamine is a normal part of your body's defense and repair mechanism and communication system. So it's produced, stored, and released primarily by immune cells called mast cells and basophils. But it also appears in the gut and in the brain. So what is histamine intolerance? So this occurs when your body has too much histamine and it can't break it down quickly enough. So think of it as sort of a histamine traffic jam. So normally our bodies rely on two key enzymes. So diamine oxidase, so the DAO enzyme, and histamine N-methyltransferase, which is in the nervous system to break down histamine. So the DAO enzyme is responsible for breaking down histamine in the gut. It's located in the small intestine, and this is where a lot of histamine is produced from food and bacteria, where the HNMT enzyme works primarily in the nervous system to regulate histamine there. When these enzymes are either deficient or overwhelmed by excess histamine, histamine starts to accumulate, leading to symptoms that we associate with histamine intolerance. This could be because of genetic vulnerability. This could be because we have too much system and not the proper ability to detoxify well and rid the excess histamine. So what are some symptoms that you might experience? This is a lot. When we're talking about histamine intolerance, it can look and feel a lot like an allergic reaction because they're located in the mast cell. But it's not a true allergy, and that's why this is really important to differentiate. So here are some common symptoms. Number one is digestive issues, and perhaps the biggest one is bloating. You can also have gas, abdominal pain, and even diarrhea. Headaches and migraines, this is a really important one. It can affect blood flow and it can lead to any kind of headaches or neuroinflammation. Skin reactions such as rashes, hives, itching, flushing in the face, particularly in the face and neck. Runny nose, sneezing, nasal congestion like an allergy would present. Heart palpitations, high blood pressure, histamine can increase both of these. Fatigue and brain fog are really popular. You may feel especially tired or cloudy in your thinking. And also estrogen dominance. This is a really interesting one, which could be a video in and of itself. But for people with histamine intolerance, estrogen dominance can intensify histamine-related symptoms. And at the same time, high histamine can make estrogen dominant symptoms worse, creating this vicious feedback loop that can be very challenging to break. So oftentimes these symptoms are going to come on very quickly after eating certain foods. So if we don't have the ability to break it down, you will typically feel a pretty immediate response, which brings us to the next part. What are the histamine foods and histamine-rich foods? So histamine intolerance is closely connected to diet because certain foods either contain high levels of histamines or they trigger the body to release more of it. So let's go through a common list, not a full list, but some of the most common histamine-rich foods. So one is aged and fermented foods. So think things like aged cheeses and sauerkraut and kimchi, soy sauce, yogurts. So we have cured and smoked meats, so salami, pepperoni, bacon. Alcohol is a really big one, especially red wine because of its fermentation and its histamine content. And alcohol is also histamine liberating, so it can increase overall histamine. Fish, so things like tuna, mackerel, sardines, especially if they're not fresh fish. Vinegars and vinegar-containing products such as pickles and olives. Anything that's been left over, a lot of packaged processed foods are going to be higher in histamine. And then we also have histamine liberators. So these are foods that may not contain histamine themselves, but they can trigger the release of histamine in the body. One of those is citrus foods. So things like oranges, lemons, limes, tomatoes, fresh or canned. Chocolate is a big one. This can be a big trigger for some. Eggplants, spinach. So there's a lot of these that when we put them in combination can really increase the histamine load. So how do we manage histamine? Let's keep in mind that there's different reasons why you might have the histamine issue. So sometimes that could be genetic. Sometimes that could be because you have GI issues. So managing histamine intolerance can be a process, and it often requires lifestyle and dietary adjustments to lower your overall histamine levels and support enzyme function. So some of the key strategies, low histamine diet is a great assessment. So to do that for 1 week to see if your symptoms resolve can be very helpful. It's not always sustainable. So this really isn't a permanent solution, but it can definitely lower the load quickly and can really make your symptoms improve very quickly. If you find that you do have a histamine intolerance, you can do support with a DAO enzyme. So this can be really simple. You take 20 minutes before your meal, histamine-containing meal, and it can help break down the histamine in that meal. And then other helpful nutrients that you can have are things like C, B6, copper. Those are all cofactors for DAO production. And improving gut health is a big one. So this is really kind of where I like to start with a lot of people, because imbalances in the gut microbiome are going to contribute to increased histamine production. Certain opportunistic bacteria can create a histamine buildup. So probiotics can be tricky here too, but some strains can increase histamine and some can help to lower. Limiting alcohol or eliminating alcohol, because both can trigger that histamine release and inhibit the DAO enzyme, making the symptoms worse. Chronic stress is also a really big one. So managing stress, using all of the vagus nerve exercises I provided you, because chronic stress can trigger this increased histamine release, affect enzyme function. So practices like deep breathing, the vagus nerve exercises, all can be really, really valuable here. When should you see someone? If you're suspecting any of this, it's very complex to work through yourself. So I would highly recommend reaching out. You can reach out to us or a local practice that specializes in functional medicine, because it is something that really you want to make sure that you're doing the right things. You're not eliminating foods just to eliminate them, and you're understanding the why behind all of this. I think that's very, very important. Like I said, sometimes it could be looking at, do you have genetically the ability to break down histamine well? Do you have GI imbalances that need to be tested with a stool test? Do you have other nervous system things that are happening that might be contributing to this? There's a lot of factors. So I just encourage you to take the information, assimilate it, see if this resonates with you, and feel free to reach out to us for a discovery session. We focus on whole body wellness through integrative and root cause medicine. And we also help you to take ownership of your health and make sure that you're doing everything you can. You're empowered to do the best and thrive. So if this was helpful, give it a like, give it a share. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Movement Paradigm. We do weekly tips on whole body wellness. And you can also join our app, The Movement Paradigm. So we have this accessible to everyone, which we have lots of different programs available to you, from movement and strength to nervous system, nutrition, lymphatics, and so much more. Thank you. Have a great day.